it should.
Right. You got your hamster rolling a little bit faster today.
Give him another pellet or two of food. He's kicking it in high gear right now.
Well, I reckon I'll open her up. Welcome back, everybody, to another Harmony Outdoor Podcast. Today, we're going to be chit-chatting about our recent out-of-state trip up to Kentucky, early season bow hunt. Mr. Horton and Mr. Brennan Masters had some success. I think we all had some success in our own ways.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what we're going to be talking about today. The mindset coming out of that, going into what will be our bow season opener here in Alabama. So, we'll just jump right in, talk about some of the things we learned, some of the things that we know that, we're not going to do continually, and going forward, I guess that's to say, and then some things that we're going to implement going forward. So, jump in.
Yeah.
Barando.
It was definitely a learning experience. Again, this was my second time to go up there for deer hunting. We all traveled back during turkey season and kind of got, the lay of the land, kind of knew what we wanted to do going into just an initial game plan. We had obviously seen several deer up there during turkey season, so that always helps with, starting to put the puzzle pieces. Let's start here and just kind of branch out, find the sign, and just start going from there. But it didn't take long, in my opinion, to kind of get nailed down, the things that we were looking for and the things that were consistent from one side of the property to the other where we initially started at, which is about 6,000 acres. Again, we with the weather situation, and myself and Brett had a game plan of just, we're not going to hunt until we find what we're looking for,
Right.
And sticking to that game plan was kind of pretty important, because I feel like if we hadn't gathered the information that we would have gathered in those couple of days, then it would have probably just, you end up going down a rabbit hole, just like with anything else. So having a game plan and sticking to it, I feel like did us really good anyways.
Yeah. I'm just now getting to the point to where I can sleep without scratching my top layer of skin off my legs. We got tore, slap up, chiggers, skeeters. That's how we say it here in the South. Chiggers, skeeters, and any kind of bug that crawled and that bites. It got on us, and
yeah. I think you got the worst end of the deal on the chiggers. So.
I did. I think so. It could have been because I had to go relieve myself over in that pasture that was just freshly mowed, but
bear down on one.
When you got to for sure. But
yeah,
we it was an experience, I know, for us all. Early season like that, never hunted in September.
Yeah.
And being out of state, and, a lot of new elements that came with that. And then, unfortunately, we were basically 4 days of hurricane, rain and wind and things like that. So we took the opportunity between, the breaks in the rain and stuff to do a little bit of boots on the ground. But, most of the time when it was raining, we were just glassing from the truck. And, saw some decent little 2-year-old bucks, different things like that. Nothing that we were looking to hunt, but, we were all on board for taking some does because we like to eat them. But never really, I think it was, when did we get the picture of the big buck? It was when Horton was heading down, wasn't it, on Friday?
On Friday.
It's Friday morning
Thursday.
at like 4 o'clock.
Yeah, I was gonna say Thursday night or Friday morning. That would have been about right. So we went up Tuesday. Me and Brett went up Tuesday, so we had been there essentially Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So I was thinking that it was 2.5 days from kind of the start of our boots on the ground scouting to where we connected with the picture of a mature buck. So
yeah,
that's kind of where it started. But it took us a lot of weeding out places that we had map scouted and looked at to get to that conclusion of, we feel pretty confident with, these 3 or 4 areas that if we're going to get a picture of a decent mature buck, then it was going to be within those sets.
Yeah, and I mean, I had a lot of confidence in what I was looking for going into this, and I kept telling you over and over and over, and I'm sure you got tired of hearing it, but I know what I had observed all summer long with photographing mature bucks and kind of their behavior, the habitat, the things that they were in. That was very important to me to kind of stick to my guns. But all along knowing that, that transition can happen almost overnight.
Yeah.
But with the conditions being what they were, I still felt like it was still a big part of my game plan. Sticking with, these bucks, they're not going, especially during the day, daylight hours. Because what they do at night, early morning hours, personally, that didn't matter to me. I mean, it does to a certain extent, but like I'm looking for daylight hour, hunting hour, type pictures and things like that. So I personally felt like, by Friday or Saturday, I mean, we walked a lot. We walked a lot of this place. We eliminated a lot of things in our minds that we both felt were, valuable, and invaluable information, knowing where to hunt, where not to hunt, things to look for, things not to worry about so much as other things. And basically collecting all that data, I felt very confident that we had done, our due diligence. And, come to find out, Horton gets down there and, and it's still raining a little bit and we got a hunt coming up. When did you kill your buck, Brandon? Was that Saturday evening?
Saturday evening. Yep.
Okay. So Horton gets on the phone and calls who I guess is one of the land managers or game warden or something over this particular WMA that we were at. And the guy basically tells us that we're wasting our time.
Yeah.
That they don't have deer on this property anymore, lost a lot of them to blue tongue, things like that. And I was like, all right, these guys they're just trolling, they're not, they're not being serious. But no, I believe he was 100% correct, because after Brandon had harvested his buck, we actually ran into another gentleman, the game warden, the actual game warden. I don't know who the other guy was, but he pretty much told us the same thing and said, once upon a time there was some really good deer hunting there, but it had just declined. And so he gave us some tips, just some other places to go that were relatively close, and we had found that those places seemed to be really good, but had been pressured a good bit since opening day. So we were about 2 weeks into that Kentucky season, so it didn't yield a whole lot for us. But what about you? Like, what was your conclusion of, like, because we started backtracking that buck Friday morning, because once we got the picture, Horton sent us the picture Friday morning, we started backtracking that buck. What was your conclusion? Like, okay, this is what all we've done, this is what all we've covered throughout the week. Kind of what was your conclusion at that point when, you saw that picture?
Yeah, I mean, so I was still at the time we woke up several mornings. I think we ended up going up there with a total of 9 trail cameras. You had 3, I had 2, and Horton had 4. But we started off by hanging them in various places. Some were based on food source, some were based on bedding, some were based on pinch points.
Yep.
And then some were based on, deer that we seen with our own eyes. We seen a little small buck, I guess the first evening that we went out. It was kind of like, I've always said, and it's just something my dad always said, the best sign that you can find is deer on the hoof, deer that are actually walking, things that you can visually see with your own eyes. So, if there's a buck there this time of year, there's typically a bachelor group. So why not hang a camera on it,
Yeah.
But anyways, going back to that, we hung several different cameras on various things to try to find out what was going to be worth our time. talked to a few people, and pretty much the general consensus was, if there's soybeans up there that are green and alive, you better be focused on those soybeans, right? And it
Yeah,
didn't
heavy
take
food
long.
source, what they were saying. That was a
Yes,
heavy
yes,
hitter. If
yes.
they were green,
Yeah,
that was
right.
our
And so backing up, most of the beans that were on the particular WMA they were already they were killed. So they have to spray the leaves in order to harvest them, and we don't know if they're trying to harvest them or not. But moral of the story is the bush is dead. The
mhm.
beans are just dried, hanging on the stalk. So, uh, do they eat those? Absolutely. But the biggest value of nutrition this time of year is the green soybean. So, we were kind of privy to that information of, hey, y'all need to be hanging out around those soybeans because they're going to be hitting those pretty hard, and which they were. The bad part is the particular WMA that we started out on didn't have any, so all the
Yeah.
neighboring properties around that WMA had the live green soybeans, and everything that was on the property was already killed and dead. So, we found out pretty quickly that the biggest food source on the WMA was the cornfields and stuff that they had harvested, which is where we had seen a lot of the deer, that were obviously alive and hanging out. But backing up to your point is what was the general consensus. There was a lot of information to gather in a short amount of time to get us to where we kind of nailed down where we ended up getting the picture at. But it was on the property line. It was in what I felt like was an extremely good travel corridor from the public to the private, and it had everything lined up for a safe buck dwelling habitat that was right next to that food source. And I think that's why we got him at the location on the camera. I think that's why we got him where we got him at, was the
Yeah.
combination of everything.
Yeah, and going back to the point we talked about, or kind of discussed several times throughout the week, deer being edge dwelling creatures. That was a big factor for hunting a lot of these transitions, from thickets to bedding to food sources to water, and all of those things being in close proximity. And going back to what I had observed all summer long, that they're just, if they can have, if that habitat is available, then that's where I felt like especially mature bucks were going to be.
Mm-hmm. Right.
There's going to, obviously you're going to see deer hanging out in corn and in different areas, around creek beds and different things like that. Finding deer was not really our problem. We saw deer literally every time we went.
Yeah.
But finding, mature bucks was what we, had set out to go to Kentucky to do. I mean, for me personally, I'm going there for something that I can't get at home, or that's readily available at home. So,
Yeah.
that's me personally. Everybody, I think, has their own mindset of what they're going for. Some was just, hey, I hadn't killed a deer in 3 years, or some was like, hey, I'm looking to, put one on my back here pretty soon, get the monkey off, and have a good season, and put some meat in the freezer, and I had those same thought processes too, but like I was so focused on just trying to find the mature deer, because that was initially my mindset going into it, and I guess my expectation might have been too high. I don't know, for the area. Now I know there's areas in Kentucky that are phenomenal,
Right.
but where we were at, it was not phenomenal. So
Yeah, and I think and it's something you've talked about a lot. Typically when we talk about it, we talk about reading sign, like what what is good sign here in my home region may or may not be the same kind of good sign that, or what I would consider is good sign in South Alabama.
yeah,
And the kind of sign that I find in South Alabama may or may not be relatable to, as far as like heavy traffic, like trails and scat and all that stuff. Like it may take 2 or 3 piles of scat around here to say, hey, the deer's using that. But
Yeah.
as you've seen up in Kentucky, I mean, you could fill a daggum wheelbarrow up with it, you know. So,
Yeah.
but deer density is kind of the same concept. Like, you know, there are other places in Kentucky. You take 6,000 acres, which is comparing apples to apples with the amount of deer that's in a certain area, and it could be drastically higher or drastically lower. And that's so much of the importance of historical data that when you're going to new places like this, like it's a blank canvas, you know. So having any expectations, in my opinion, is kind of one of them things that you're dancing on a line that you really don't know at that point. So it takes those days and years and you know the miles of walking and hanging the cameras to say, you know, this place just simply doesn't have a lot of deer. The deer density is low, and
Yeah.
I think that's exactly what happened to us for the first 3 or 4 days.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I agree. I agree. You know, you just hear the stories of, you know, giants in Kentucky and giants in Missouri and Illinois, Iowa, all that stuff, which, I mean, obviously they're there. There's
Yeah.
giants in Alabama,
Yeah.
you know, but, you know, out of state tags, license, the travel, all that stuff, you know, you just want to go and have an experience, or at least I do anyway. What was your, what was your biggest takeaway from hunting that type of terrain? Because obviously this is night and day difference
Yeah.
from what we have here. The terrain was pretty much all, you know, big ag type stuff. And there's some decent amount of woods, you know, but like we weren't finding the deer in the woods really at all. We were finding the deer on the edge of these ag fields, and a lot of the grown up stuff on the edge because the woods were so open.
Yeah.
Now there were some places that had the 3 layers like we talk about, the shrub layer, the mid story, and the upper, with some decent stem count.
Yeah.
But we found, like, so that type of stuff is valuable information for us here at home. But like we found that these deer were not so much really bedding and using that stuff as they were on the edge of these cornfields, ag fields, stuff like that, in just some brushy thicket stuff that really didn't have a whole lot of mid-story or anything like, you know, shading cover type stuff. We were finding also, a big point was we were finding that these deer were basically using the corn, the still standing corn, kind of like cutover.
Yes.
They used it for bedding, feeding, like they used it just like they would have cut over here at home, because I had a couple does come out on me, which was from the woods. They came out on the wood line and literally, and you'll see all this in the hunt. We're going to do the hunt up here pretty soon and have that on YouTube for you guys as well. But they came out of the woods and beelined across this soybean field, which was, you know, the green soybeans that we were supposed to be so heavily on. They beelined across it into the corn.
Yeah.
And all I could see was little noses nipping at corn stalks, and pretty much ripping off a whole head of corn. I guess that's what it's called.
Yeah. Ear corn.
But ear of corn, yeah. So, and they would just lay down in there and eat, and they had cover, and I mean, you couldn't see them. You definitely couldn't shoot them.
Yeah.
So,
and we seen that multiple times too, because like there was one day me and Hunter pretty much ended up hunting the same field and didn't really know that he didn't know that I was there. I seen him drive by anyhow. Long story short, there were 2 does that did the same thing. They ran pretty much, you know, full speed all the way across that, and I seen them come and knew they was headed to him. I'm trying to, you know, text him real quick, and before I get the text message sent to him, they had already pretty much jumped in there, literally on top of him. He said one of them like to ran over him, but
yeah,
you know, like you said, they were using those open fields like cutover. They didn't like it, and they would run from this cover to that cover. And then once they got in the edge of it, the edge of the standing corn, then they'd go back to normal, slow down and do their thing.
And there were some places to where those soybean stands were, I mean, almost head high on me.
Yep.
I'm almost 6 foot tall. I think majority of it was about waist to shoulder, and there was, we had a little young buck bedded down in that stuff when you started walking across it. So
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and that was that was freaking 11 o'clock.
Yeah. Yep. Midday.
Just laying down in the middle of it, just sitting there eating. So I don't know, with as hot as it was and stuff like that, some of that was confusing to me.
Yeah.
Just felt like they wouldn't be in that. And hit it late and early in the morning, late in the evening, stuff like that. Now I feel like the corn stand added a little bit of shade and stuff like that. Had the bare dirt and could lay down on that and still stay kind of cool.
Yeah.
And it offers a lot of cover as well. But I don't know. My biggest takeaway was, I don't know. I mean, I felt like every bit of scouting, I felt like every bit of efforts that we put in was valuable to learn what they were and weren't doing. But I think in the end, it was more about what was actually on that property, the deer herd. I mean, so
Yeah.
I think what we did was the best thing we could have done, in the takeaway that we're probably just not going back. We're not going back to that particular WMA. The other one that we ended up at, I feel like we will. I feel like that we know that we have to hit it opening day. We have to hit it early because those deer were, I mean, you could just tell they did not want to be in the open.
Yep. And again, that going back to historical data, there was another guy that had told us, we ran into one of the locals there, and he was saying that the small game squirrel and rabbit season stuff opens up a little bit earlier there, and he said they do a pretty good job of patterning some really nice deer up there. But as soon as the squirrel and rabbit hunters come in, a few pop shots here and there, he said they flip, go to doing something completely different. But for me, like, the biggest takeaway was the change we're so used to in our region and in our area, relying on topography, and it's they do the same thing up there. It's just all the hints are just so subtle. You know what I mean? Everything, the little bitty drains, because there's, I don't know, I would say probably less than 100 feet of elevation in both of the areas that we hunted. So what you're used to doing around here and around your home turf, and vice versa, works either way. But if you're used to hunting topography and then you go to a place that doesn't have any topography, you have to relearn, those subtle little things. So it was huge to me the first time we walked in that first big cornfield we was at, and I was walking down the edge of it, and I mean there was some scouting stuff in the field, but you couldn't really see any sign. And there was at one point I was trying to get back on your side and come to you, and it's like as soon as I transitioned into the woods from the cornfield, it was just bed after bed after bed after bed. And then I got to noticing, where there were 2 or 3 beds, there's a trail, and then they would drag the corn stalks. You could see where they would take the corn stalks and drag them into the woods. And I mean, that's the kind of stuff, again, it may be blatantly obvious to somebody, but if you've never seen it, it's like, it took me a minute to figure out, oh crap, that's animals and deer dragging this corn stalk 10, 15 feet into the woods,
Yeah.
So many things like that we had. It took us a couple of days to put the puzzle pieces together and start reading the sign to get to the point where we felt like we understood it a decent amount. So, but yeah, the biggest thing for me was just the topography and how, subtle a lot of it was, and trying to pin everything down in a way that I could understand it based off of what I was used to hunting, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel pretty much the same way about it as well.
Yeah.
I just I didn't leave with any unknowns within my mind, and that's good for me, because I like to question a lot of things, and I didn't. We pretty much exhausted everything that I wanted to exhaust, and I think every bit of it was valuable information to gather. Tell us a little bit about your bow kill, the buck that you killed, and why you feel that kind of came full circle, because this was an area that we had our eyeballs on from turkey season, and just kind of how all that lined up.
Yeah, so just to preface all of this, the field that I ended up killing this buck in was the field that we turkey hunted, like he said. We had a close call that morning. To
Hey,
make a
nothing
long
happened
story,
in that field.
and nothing happened.
Nothing
Yeah,
happened in
nothing
that field.
happened. We did have some deer came out first thing that morning out of the same corner. There was, I think, I can't remember if it was 2 or 3 or 4 or something like that, but
I
that
don't
again,
remember.
just deer on hoof. It's just like, well, if they're there during turkey season, it's right after deer season, then it's worth taking a look at, right?
Yeah.
So, and again, this is done day 3 or 4 at this point, so we have kind of a good idea of what a good amount of sign is. And one thing that I'm genuinely curious if there's anyone out there that knows. There's always been a wise tale around our neck of the woods of I'm just going to call it a turd because I don't know any other way to say it. But if deer scat is in a turd form, what does that mean to you? We were always kind of taught that that's a buck turd, right? At one point in time, I had heard somebody say that that is inconsistent and that a turd form means that that deer has bedded down and they were essentially just getting up from bedding and their intestines were compacting the dookie. So, anyhow, if you have some insight on that or you have some experiences, please let us know because I'm genuinely curious. Now, to tie all that in, we found a bunch of what we thought was buck turds in the backside of that field, and it was dried beans. Again, the leaves weren't there; everything was dead. But there was I would say a significant amount more of those turds in a localized spot or a smaller spot. And that paired with, obviously we'd already seen some deer there back during turkey season. It was like, well, let's hang a camera on it,
Yeah.
And we just kept on scouting and all that stuff. Well, come the end of the day, it ended up just essentially being I don't really have anything better to go off of. And so we wanted to hunt in the same area, so we just decided to divide and conquer. He was kind of hunting on one side of the swamp, and I was hunting on the other side of the swamp. And I mean, from really just sign wise, that's the only thing was just the doo doo,
Yeah.
But long story short, it ended up being a roller coaster. It's crazy, and I missed the record button the first time like a rookie. But the deer, ends up, he runs up one direction and he stops about right where I walked in. He tears out back the way he come from, and I thought it was done that quick. It's like, well, he busted me. And then, he runs a different direction, and a couple of seconds later, he runs a different direction, and before you know it, he ends up in the field. And it all happened pretty quickly, so.
And Brandon, he's in a tree about the size of his microphone.
That's pretty daggum close. I can only make it about 10 foot up off the ground, and the hole that I can shoot is only about twice as big as my head. But anyhow, he ends up in the field, and I mean, the thing that it taught me the most is, I would say, pay attention a lot more than what you think about the angle of how the deer is standing. Is he broadside? Is he quartering to? Is he quartering away? Because I mean, that you'll see it in the video, but I mean, I would not have placed my arrow by hand any different than what I did shooting it. It was Katie bar, like I was 100% good. It was a good shot. I heard the hit. He jumped, big mule kick. He runs in the woods about 40 yards, and I literally see him stop, head real close to the ground, and I'm just waiting for the whole drunk wobble fall over, hoorah, here we go. And he didn't do it. And then he beds down, and then I watch him bed down for 6 or 8 minutes, and then he gets up and walks off, and I'm like, holy crap, Get down, look at the arrow. Of course, it's got guts all over it. Watch the footage, and everybody's in agreement, right? That it's just, I smoked him. Him. Long story short is that deer was quartering. It didn't really look like it to me live action, and it didn't really look like it to me in the video footage.
No.
But moral of the story is he was coming toward me, and I should have essentially waited till he got even with me or past me, because if he's not even with you at that point, he's essentially quartering to you. And I should have paid a lot more of attention than what I did. So
Yeah, I mean that's a huge like experience thing that you got to shoot a lot of deer with a bow to really
Yep.
just recognize those subtle changes in angle, whether that's steepness, quartering away, all that
Mhm.
type of stuff. So I mean, I think it's good to get your arrow wet sometimes,
Yeah.
and just keep going. And I'm sitting here. I've only killed one deer with a bow. Just picking my bow back up from when we were youngsters, used to do it all the time. Never really had any success doing it, but just picking back bow hunting back up, 41 years old. I'm sitting here holding out for a 160, and I'm like, could you even contain yourself if something like that walks out? I feel like
Yeah.
Big Boncho man, I could, but
Yeah.
uh, I'd probably get
I've
pretty
seen
damn
what you look
shook
like
up.
when you get shook up. There ain't no doubt about it there.
Yeah.
You call me and say I'm finna fall out of this tree.
I'm betting I fall the hell out of this tree.
Yeah.
But I don't
But
know. I set my standards high. Let's just put it that way. So,
yeah.
but
And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. You just gotta be you gotta be willing to live and die by them words. That's all it boils down to. So
yeah,
uh I don't think that my standards were any lower than yours. It's just after 3 or 4 days, and it's not about like for me, it's not about a tag sandwich, right? Because we still got late October, November. There's still 2 really good hunts that could have been involved in there, but
sure.
I mean, this is not the out of state Kentucky buck that I've ever dreamed of. No, no,
Right.
that's not him. But I was very proud to hang my hat on this guy for everything that we had to overcome in the short amount of time. And I told y'all boys, and a couple podcasts ago, this old boy's headed back to Missouri. I got some stuff to settle up. So y'all gonna have to get on the wagon if you're coming with me. But
Yeah.
it was a lot of it was a way to just polish that off. I'm here. I'm done, and I'm literally just moving on to Kentucky. So,
Yeah.
or I'm sorry, moving on to Missouri.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Nothing wrong with that. Can't tell you that I would have done anything any different in that moment, just because of the amount of grind that went into to getting to that time. I mean, but you never know. I mean, I always think it's good to just kind of like what you did. You have your expectations, whatnot, but at the same time, don't pass up opportunities that can be uh, good for you, whether that be a lesson learned or
yep,
meat in the freezer or whatever. Because
yeah,
we personally eat a lot of deer. So, um, but anyway, neither here nor there. Had a good trip. Had a good time with everybody. I think everybody grew as friends, and Horton smacked him a big old nanny.
yeah.
I mean, put her down, perfect shot. She
Mm-hmm.
went down within 60, 70 yards.
Yeah.
Um, and I think they struggled a little bit too. It's so different. It's just so different than what we're used to. So I
Yeah.
think they kind of struggled a little bit, kind of getting it going. But the good thing is it's fairly easy where we were at to see deer. Um, but obviously with a bow, that makes challenges, a
Yeah.
little bit worse.
Yeah. And I know, like, you and I both had a couple of opportunities to, sling some at some good old fat nannies, but, unfortunately, like, that's decision, excuse me, decisions have to be made quickly. And when you have cameras and all that stuff involved, sometimes it takes too long to get it worked out. And I know the way that you feel, and I feel the same way. But at this point, taking the camera with me and filming success, whether it's my own success or other people's success, like you and Hunter, my kids, close friends and family, and all that stuff. It's it's literally a part of me now, and the only way that I don't take it is if there's a possibility of it getting damaged. Rain, thunderstorms, that kind of stuff.
Right.
outside of that, like, it's a part of me. I enjoy that aspect of it just as much as I do hunting, So, it takes a change of mind, or a change of your mindset, and I'm just now kind of getting to that point. When I see a deer now, my first reaction is to hit record on the camera instead of grabbing my bow or my gun, whatever the case may be.
Yep.
And like I
'Cause
said,
you
I got bit,
to.
kind of the last day, had an opportunity, but by the time I got everything up and going, it was done. I know you did,
Yeah.
the same kind of thing that day, that evening. So, but it's
Yeah.
all worth it in the end.
Yeah. When you're trying to get two angles, camera here and your camera over here, get this camera to a position to where it's pulled back enough that you can still see the shot, but tight enough that you can actually still see what's going on. The deer were just kind of moving along too quick. Everything was rolling. Everything was perfect. It was just I needed them to hang out for about
10
another
more
minute.
seconds. Yeah.
And it would have been game over. If I would have made a good shot anyway.
Yeah.
But they were about 30 yards, and it wouldn't have been too big of a deal. They were pretty much quartering away the whole time, going across in front of me into the corn. But yeah, I mean it's a commitment for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't absolutely love it, if it's not a part of who you are, it's more about the experience than the kill. It's more about the stories told than the kill. That's us, and everybody's got their way of that they like to enjoy the outdoors. But for us, that's the way we like to enjoy it. It's a lot of fun to relive those moments.
Yep, I agree. I wouldn't do anything any different than the way we did. The amount of time that it took us to learn some of the land and learn what to look for, the areas to look for them at. All that resulted in 2 successful hunts. Out of the 3 of us in 7 days at a place that we've been there, but we've never really deer hunted it before. That's overall success to me, and so I'm extremely happy. Tell us about the tent camping. How'd you like the tent camping?
The tent camping was interesting. I like tent camping, but not on the side of the interstate.
Yeah.
For some reason, I don't know. Like I didn't remember because we camped at the exact same campground that we camped out in turkey season, but I think they had recently built a drag strip between turkey season and deer season because it was pretty brutal trying to get sleep. So we had pillows, headphones, fans, air conditioners, radios. We had it all running just to try to get some sleep and then
round it out.
But I mean, a lot of rain moved through that area with the hurricane and stuff that just came up from the Gulf. And I think the tent did well. I think the tent held up just fine.
Yeah.
Now, I'll be honest with you. At the end of it, I was over it.
Yeah.
But that's a week in a tent with, rain and drag strip and all that stuff. So
yeah, it's really the worst conditions to be tent camping in is what we tended. And on top of that, it was hot. Hot and muggy, and I know at one point because that was kind of something that I was responsible for, that and keeping us dry and all that stuff. So there was a pretty good bit of stress involved until the first night of rain came and gone. And it's not just rain, it was a wind, and we had a tarp, and it's like, man, I know the wind's just going to rip this thing off. So the first couple of nights, I didn't really get to relax that good until, I had got to build up a little confidence in the setup, but it ended up being just fine.
Well, I had nothing but confidence in you, Brandon, because you're the knot tying master.
Yeah.
And you're the epitome of Boy Scouts chief. I mean, you can throw a stick in the ground, tie a knot around it, and it's there. So
I've never been into Boy Scouts just for the record. I've never. All comes from the fire service.
He's kind of like MacGyver, so I got a lot of confidence in Brandon and his camping abilities. So
yeah. I truly enjoy that side of it, though. I mean, it was.
I would have enjoyed it more had we been like literally out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. It wouldn't have been quite as bad, but you deal with other things when you start getting out in the middle of nowhere too. So
That's true. You don't have the accommodations of a hot shower and
that's right. That's
all
right.
that fun stuff. So
Yep. But overall, it was a great week. I think, like you said, most importantly, we grew as friends. We grew as understanding, some of the things that we need to understand about ourselves. Got to do a lot of good reflection, and man, I'm thankful. I'm thankful to get the opportunity to do what we do. I want a big shout out to our wives and our families because there's not a lot of people that would put up with us doing what we do the way that we do it. So, thankful for Holly and Kristen and Miss Anna, Horton's fiance, for allowing us to enjoy life the way that we do. So,
yeah. Yep. They put up with a bunch of goons for sure that
yeah.
love to just go hunt. So,
yep.
But it is an opportunity. That's something I talk a lot about with y'all, and it is an opportunity to get to share this passion and the dream of being in the industry and being able to enjoy it the way that we enjoy it, and hopefully be a role model for someone, youngsters, things like that. Hopefully teach some youngsters coming up to appreciate what we have, just the way that we have learned to respect it and appreciate it ourselves. So
absolutely,
that's kind of our goal in this business. What you got on your head?
Well, I mean, looking forward to the next couple of weeks. We got a few interesting things coming down the pipe. Hopefully, we'll set up pretty good for the next couple of episodes, podcast and stuff. Our opening season of bow is coming up pretty soon, and the way that our state kind of lines up, they split it into zones. So we're going to get one up in our neck of the woods, and we're also going to try to travel down to another one that we have a lot of familiarity with, but just not early season, not bow season, and not really outside of rut.
Mm-hmm.
This place has got I have a lot of history. Brett has a lot of history, and really Horton does too. I would say probably 70% of my most memorable moments come from this place. So I'm really looking forward to it. Going down there early season and hopefully getting just the first 3 to 5 days of no pressure. That's really what we're trying to accomplish. So
yeah,
but between that and wrapping up on these TFT pot calls is the last section of those. I need to put that to bed so that I can move on in my mind and kind of get the ball rolling on that. So between that and the 2 opening days coming up, my mind's pretty full right now. So
yeah, I think the mindset throughout the year is going to be hunt as many openers as possible, hunt as many ruts as possible, maximize opportunities as much as possible. So early season hunts, that is a whole new playing field for us. So that'll be interesting to learn through that process. We got some more guests coming on the podcast. People in the industry, people that's been in the industry for 40 some odd years. Some people we've met along the way. So we got some pretty good guests coming up here over the next few podcasts. So you won't have to just hear from us all the time too. So we want to try to keep it fresh, keep some interesting guests on here. Talking about, the great outdoors and things that we love, turkey hunting, deer hunting, stuff like that. So, got some good stuff coming up. We got some new apparel. Got some new hats, guys. Rope hats. Brandon's got one on.
Yep.
I'm in love with the rubber patches. I've always liked them. But I've been wanting a non-structured, just because they're, I don't know, fit my big gourd a little bit better than the rope hats.
Yeah, you do have a big old head.
I do have a big head.
A lot of information to store up there, huh? Yeah.
yeah. A lot of questions too. A lot of questions and things that go on up there. So,
yeah. One more thing I want to touch on is so far, y'all have supported the podcast really good. These episodes have done extremely well, better than what we really ever could have imagined at this early in the game. So we had a couple heavy hitters right out of the gate, and talking about things that typically most people don't talk about, and that's kind of what we're wanting to do is find our way But just wanted to let you all know that we sincerely appreciate the support that we've got. Both with selling the products and also the content side. Y'all are killing it with supporting the content that we produce, and anything that you can do along the way to help. I mean, liking, subscribing, giving thumbs up, commenting. If there's anything
Yeah.
that you want to know, like that stuff is what drives us being able to do this. So if you like what we're doing, please, we love feedback. We love feedback, and we would welcome anything that you have to say, good, bad, or negative. I'm sorry for calling y'all rednecks the other day. I am a redneck. So I was insinuating in that episode of myself, but I figured y'all would get a kick out of that. So,
oh man. Well, Brandon's all about putting people down, stuff like that.
I ain't done it.
That's more my speed than his, anyway. No, man, that's spot on, because we wouldn't be able to do any of this without the people out there that are watching, supporting. Mm-hmm. You don't have to buy a game call to support us. You can give us a thumbs up. You can give us a comment. You can give us a subscriber, a follower on TikTok, Instagram, all those things. All those things help us.
Yes.
As we end up, going forward, growing the brand, and just trying to expand our love for the outdoors. And, hey, our calls, 100% money back guarantee. We're full confident, full of confidence that you're going to absolutely love the products that we make.
Mm-hmm.
Converted a few people here recently, met some pretty cool people here recently through the content side of things, and absolutely love the product, absolutely love the turkey calls. So,
yep.
And the deer call, I think, recently too, from Ethan's story.
Yeah.
So, I mean, give us an opportunity. We won't let you down. We'll make it right. If you don't like it, we'll buy it back.
Yep.
So,
yep.
But again, appreciate the opportunity to aid in your outdoor success. Appreciate the opportunity to help you any way that we can with any information. And like Brandon said, comment, ask the questions, reach out. If there's something that you want to know or something that we do that you like, let us know, and we'll expand on those things. So,
yeah.
But I'm excited. We got a lot coming up. Deer season's just really starting. So it feels like we've been in it for a minute with that grind that we had there in Kentucky.
Yeah, I know.
We're just getting started. So
yeah, it took about a month off my life, but I again, I'm thankful for the opportunity that we got to go up there and be successful early, and hopefully just keep that. A lot of the seasons in the past of mine end up, if they get started out on a good foot, they typically like to stay there. So maybe we can hold that, get some more good hunts, some more good episodes, and move this thing on down the road. That's what I hope. So
yeah.
At this point, I would love to have a duplicate of last year, because we had a hell of a year last year.
We did.
So
we did.
But maybe we can keep it moving.
Yep, absolutely. Well, all right, I'm good. If you're good, Brandon, we'll wrap this thing up. Like I say, we got some more guests coming on here pretty soon, so make sure you like, subscribe, stay tuned, and we'll see you guys next time on another Harmony Outdoors podcast.
See y'all. Appreciate you joining in.
See you guys. All right.